Hey everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome back to the Fishing Podcast, and thanks for tuning in to episode 2. My quick apologies for my audio. I don't know how it's going to sound quite yet. I'm using subpar equipment because I've had some technical difficulties with my computer, and this is really my only option for recording this intro right now. But things are looking up. I thought I had lost all of my pre-recorded episodes, which would have been really devastating because I have some good ones for you guys, and this is definitely one of those that I am excited about. Because if you have ever heard of mousing and you were like me about 6 months ago, you might think fishing in the dark for trout is not for me. I'm not very good with a fly rod in the daytime, let alone slinging big mice around in the dark where I can't see and there's branches everywhere. However, Brian was kind enough to invite me out fishing for the first time to go mousing. And the first time we went, we didn't catch anything. It was a pretty slow night, but we missed some fish, kind of got me interested, hooked on it, and started looking into it a little bit more, and went one more time. And then the third trip that I went on was also with Brian. And well, you'll hear how that trip went if you listen to this episode. But really the point that I want to get across here is this is something that anybody can get out and do. If being in the river in the dark is something that doesn't scare you, then I mean, it's really not that hard. And we'll get into why that is and why I think you can get out there and do it. It sounds a lot scarier than it is, and I'm glad I actually gave it a shot because I'm hooked on it now. I mean, if you can imagine bass fishing, when you get that early morning topwater hit, it's like that times 10 the excitement when one of these big browns comes thrashing out of the water after your fly. That's for me, that moment when it's just whoosh and you hear that fish come up is so exciting. So we get into how to do it, where to go, what you want to look out for, what you want to use, all that good stuff. And then obviously talk about Brian, his guide service, what he does. So if you're interested in getting out with somebody that really knows what they're doing, and I'm not just talking for mousing, but for dry fly fishing, nymphing, this guy's been doing it a long time. I think he said in the episode 10 years or so, but he's been fishing for a lot longer. So a lot of people will look at taking a guide as very expensive, and I actually kind of was running the numbers the other day, and if you buy a drift boat but only use it a few times a year, it might be cheaper to pay a guide to take you every single time. And what you're going to learn going with somebody that just fishes day in and day out is honestly priceless. Knowledge is priceless in my opinion. So I got to give this guy a shout out because really impressed me with his positive attitude, with his wealth of knowledge, and just his overall excitement about catching trout. So we'll get into this episode here. I hope you guys enjoy it, and please shoot me some feedback. Let me know what you think. If it's terrible, let me know. If it's the best episode or best podcast you've ever heard in your entire life, definitely let me know that. You can find me at thefishingpodcast.com or on Instagram or Facebook at The Fishing Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody, and enjoy. So Brian and I are sitting here on the river. Just got done doing a little dry fly fishing through some streamers, caught a few fish, caught my nicest brown to date on a fly. What do you think it was, about 14 inches, Brian?
14 on the Madsen skunk. Nice little hopper pattern.
So now we're just sitting here waiting for it to get dark, hoping to catch some of those big trout that like to come out and look for some food later at night.
Drinking coffee. Jacking up on caffeine.
Yeah, I'm going to need more caffeine because I'm on night 2 of staying up all night and chasing big browns. Went to bed at 5:30 yesterday. You didn't exactly have a restful morning though either.
No, about the same time you're going to bed, I was getting up and we were doing the dragon races on Lake Charlevoix this morning, it was an awesome experience.
So we talked a little bit about that in the car on the way here, but explain. So you're in a huge canoe. How big is this canoe?
They're 42 feet long, 41 and a half. I guess it depends on if you measure the head, the dragon head and the tail.
So it literally has a dragon head and a tail.
It's
okay.
There's a whole ceremony in the beginning. They do Awakening the Dragon, where people go through with the Chinese dragon and symbols, and they paint the eyes on the dragon, and it's to bring good luck to a community. Then they pass the oar for fellowship, and it was actually really cool. It was very symbolic. But these canoes, or long boats, are 42 feet long, and they have 20 people, 20 rowers, 1 drummer on the front, and 1 rudder person on the back.
Okay.
Steersman.
Much bigger than I thought. Okay, because yesterday you said you were doing a canoe race, and I envisioned you and one of your other buddies like paddling down the river as fast as you could.
Nope. These are like short strokes to the rhythm of the drummer in the front. They're power lunge forward.
Huh.
Left side and right side, and you don't do any turning because the steersman does that. But
so you're just the motor.
We are
unless you're the steersman.
Yep, and then we jam on the brakes, hold it down. There's a couple of calls. The steersman gives all the calls, which is really cool. They're like, let it ride, so you coast, steady the boat. You have to hold the oar out to keep the boat from tipping. We tipped once. We took on a huge wave. The bow of the boat, I could see from the back, just took a nose up, and we went down into a wake, and that wave just came right over the middle of the boat, and all of a sudden we were swamped. But it was exciting. Nobody drowned. Coast Guard was there right away. They did their job. We were there for a local radio station out of Petoskey, so it was a lot of fun. It was a good day. Eventful. My daughter loved it. She thought it was the best part of the day that we spilled. She was like,
definitely makes it more interesting.
Cool. Yeah, especially when they got to get a ride on the Coast Guard, big Coast Guard boat. So
you got back out though and did the race again, or
we
was
did.
that it?
We pushed it to shore, and we took a vote, and we're like, let's do it again. You can't let something like that stop you. And I think we got a little bit of credit for, we did a practice on Thursday, so some of these people were totally new. They've never done anything like it. It was a lot of fun.
It sounds like fun. There was another fish.
That was a nice fish. That's the best part about this.
We're just sitting here listening and
dude, that was a fish.
Talking, just fish hitting the surface that we should be catching. But we've got some things.
Paddle up to that one.
We could, but then where does it stop?
It doesn't.
Then there's the next one. We'll get them. We'll get them later. The big ones that haven't come out yet. It's not dark, right?
Right.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. Basically, the theory is the fish haven't responded yet to the questionnaires, but once a trout gets to a certain size, let's say 12 inches, they become predominantly predaceous and nocturnal. They no longer can sustain their lifestyle by eating French fries. They need to eat Quarter Pounders and Big Macs. So they come out at night because they're nocturnal. Brown trout, they have found, have an extra mirror in the back of their eye. So it's like when you go to the eye doctor and they put those drops and dilate your pupil, when you walk out, you're blinded. That's what it's like for a brown trout in the river during the day. That's why they're always hidden underneath the wood, and that's why they come out at night. That extra mirror helps them discern shadows, even in the dark. People, I mentioned to a lot of people that we love to go mousing. They're like, what do you mean mousing? You use mice? I'm like, well, we use mice flies. Like, and it catches fish? Like, it catches big fish.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing's pretty new to me. I've kind of heard about people doing it for maybe a few years now, but it's definitely not a new thing. People have been doing it for quite a while, from what I've read now, at least.
Yep, it's been a big Midwest thing for a few years. Definitely doing it out east more. Not so much in the Rockies. I know a few guys that have grown up in Michigan and they move out west. But you generally don't fish at night out in Yellowstone because there's things out there that can eat you at night.
Yeah.
And they close parks down.
Yeah. I even sleeping outside here with black bears is not super concerning, but it's on my mind. So out there, I would be definitely.
When you hear owls and you're like, what was that? It's just an owl. But
well, last night.
Raccoon sounds like a bear.
Last night when I was going to bed at 5:30 this morning.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to fall straight to sleep.
Nope.
I'd been up for almost 24 hours, and I'm laying there. I'm just about falling asleep, and coyotes just start going crazy, and they're not very far away, and I'm not afraid of coyotes at all, but still, trying to go to bed, and they're making a lot of noise. So I actually had an interesting mishap this morning, too. I got on the road. I was going to hit some little streams that I'd been looking at on the map and wanted to try out, and drove about a half hour from where we were fishing this morning. Got out, went to get my waders, and they're in my buddy's car still. And he was headed back to Lansing.
Dude.
And I'd even thought about it this morning. Did I get everything? I'm like, yeah, I remember putting my waders, my fishing pole.
I brought an extra pair of waders for you.
Well, I'm going fishing tomorrow with Alex as well.
Gotcha.
So I needed my waders. Honestly, I could have probably forgot anything else but my waders and been okay.
Right.
But waders aren't. Usually people don't have a spare set for you.
Alex is going to take you to some pretty special spots. I know. He knows some spots.
That's what he says. He's, he does a lot of brookie fishing.
Yep, you're going to be in some big brook trout territory.
That's good.
I'm jealous.
That's
You'll
what I
have
like.
Fun. Me too.
You could probably come.
Tomorrow's my family day. I try to one day a week do family.
That's probably a good thing. Otherwise,
it's going to be 92
you might end
degrees.
up not having a family.
Yeah.
So yeah, I called my buddy and I was like, hey, what are you doing this afternoon? He's like, oh, I can't do anything again this afternoon. I got stuff to do. And I was like, well, are you going to be around the house? Because I need to stop and get my waders. And he's like, oh, shit, are you serious? And I'm like, yep. Yeah, I forgot I'm in your car. And he's like, well, I missed the exit for 127 and went straight down 75. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll come to your house. And then I got to thinking about it. And I was like, wait a minute. If he went down 75, he could shoot back over on 10 and meet me at Claire if he hasn't gotten that far yet. I caught him just in time. So he drove over and saved me a good 2.5 hours of driving.
Nice.
Which I really appreciated. But yeah, didn't end up doing too much fishing this afternoon. Did a little bit more resting, but we'll need that to catch these big fish tonight, right?
Yep.
So,
what do you like to use? What's your favorite fly? I know you're mousing. We moused on the Jordan. We did a little bit of poking into the wood and the brush, but
I don't know if I have enough experience to have a favorite fly. But the ones that Jake made up did pretty well for us. He got 2 fish. He got one really nice fish. One that was, I think, 22 inches.
Oh, that's nice.
And I missed a couple.
Nighttime fishing is a totally different world. You're so in tune to all of your other senses because you're lacking your predominant sense of vision. So you've got to be more heightened on touch and hearing, and you're so
right
wired for sound.
Yeah, it's almost it just feels completely different. I don't know, it's hard to explain.
You're out of your element.
Yeah.
I mean, we as bipedal creatures like to have eyes and see where we're going. I mean, we're watching for bugs, we're watching for stuff in the trees in the sky.
I did see a couple bugs out there.
It's been an odd year for bug hatches. It's been just an odd season all the way around. High spring, no season, switch over from winter right to summer.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier too.
Yeah, it has been a lot of extremes. Really hot, really cold, really dry, really wet. Is that a fish?
Something. It sounded more shoreline creature.
Yep.
But raccoons like to come down to the lake or down to the river and clean off their food or look for crayfish.
Yeah. Not seeing any eyes though.
No, a lot of things like to come out at night.
But
back to browns.
Well, let's actually take a step back first. Let's let's actually talk about you a little bit. So, obviously, you do some guiding now, more than some.
Yep. I'm on the river almost 100 days. Last year was like 89 days. This year it's getting there's only so much time you can do and be on the river, and then all of a sudden you realize you're not fishing for yourself. You never get to enjoy what you're so passionate about. But like you said earlier, I love watching people catch fish. I could sit in the boat and row all day long. This is the best office you could ever have. There's a couple of other guys that have the same, they've got the same lifestyle, and and even when you have a series or a set of bad days, you're not catching fish, or you've got beginners, there's still no better way of getting people engaged in the outdoors than taking them fly fishing. Number one comment everybody always says, you don't realize these places exist a couple hours away from where they live,
right.
Or they've never heard such silence, because our lives are so busy waiting at stop signals, or waiting for a fax or a text or a message or an email, or we're waiting on all these cues, and you get out here and none of that matters. You're so in touch with nature. You're one with the river, and it's so.
You don't have anything else to really worry about.
No.
And it's constant. There's another fish.
Right next to the boat.
Yeah. It's constant entertainment, for me at least. Some people don't like it, I guess, which I will never understand. But
they like to chase little white golf balls.
Yeah.
That's fun, too.
That's fun about 2 or 3 times a year, especially if somebody else pays for it.
Yeah.
But did you fish as a kid?
Dad and Grandpa, it's ironic that they both fly fish. Dad did not. Grandpa introduced us to it at around 8 or 9 years old. But Grandpa grew up in that generation where you catch and you kill. And if you went and saw Grandpa on Sunday and said, "Hey, Gramps, I went fishing yesterday," he would be like, "Show me." I'm like, "Well, I let him go."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, then you didn't go fishing." I'm like, "Well, you got to let a few fish go, or you're not going to have any." But that was our grandfather's generation. They tied flies, and I think there was a big separation in the 40s and the 50s, post World War II, where we were blue collar West Side Grand Rapids Polacks, and Grandpa didn't have a whole lot of money, and neither did Dad. And his tying equipment consisted of literally a clothespin and a wrench in a vise that he would hold hooks in. And it was very rudimentary, but they liked the challenge of catching a trout on a fly, and that's. You just eventually get to that level. I love throwing a spinner. I love throwing a Rapala, whatever. But the ultimate challenge is coming out here and duping a fish that's rising to a certain specific stage of an insect, and you've got to figure it out.
Yep. It's
Or you throw a big meat out there and upset them to the point where they got to show it who owns the territory.
Yeah, I like doing everything. I mean, I don't think I'll ever be somebody that exclusively fly fishes, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to do it sometimes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do both. It keeps you grounded. And it's like my daughter, Simone's 13. She has been casting a fly rod since she was 4. She's pretty good at it, but we'll take the paddle boards out and she'll ask if she can bring the spin rod. And I'm not going to say no. I want her to fish, and I don't care how she does it. Some people pshaw on that, and I'm like, she's fishing. That's cool to me. That means more than anything.
Right.
So keep your kids out there, keep them engaged, let them realize that we've got these beautiful resources in our backyard, and let them treasure it. Otherwise, when we're gone, who's going to be protecting it?
Exactly.
It's funny you mentioned your dad's age, and he's only a couple years older than me, so you could almost be my kid. But it's like, I think no, there's definitely a generation bridge that's happening right now. There's a much younger generation that is either hooked into the iPad or their Snapchat, Instagram, whatever account, and they're not going outside and engaging in what we have all around us. And it's that I couldn't wait to when I was a kid, to throw a rod in the back of my backpack and throw a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go on my bike and go find a river and be gone for a day.
Yep. I spent a lot of summers doing that, pulling a wagon behind our bikes and
Yeah.
throwing worms
Hunting
and
for
snacks.
steelhead.
And
Yeah.
we didn't have any steelhead where I grew up. I mean, I've fished a lot my entire life, but until 5-6 years ago, really didn't get into trout fishing at all. And now it's pretty much what consumes most of my time. I still bass fish and bluegill fish.
Bass
and
fishing's a riot.
every kind of fish. I just love catching.
Bluegills on a fly
Fish.
rod is outstanding too.
Yes, and that's how I learned to fly fish.
That's how
originally.
most people should learn how to fly fish.
And
They think coming out here is easy. It's so challenging. You got to
Yeah.
learn to catch, and setting the hook is
Get
a
'em
whole
on.
nother chapter.
get bluegills in the early spring, either before they get on their beds and they're cruising around shallow,
Mm-hmm.
or
Or Father's Day, just
Or on their
waiting
beds.
around. Yep.
That's
Throwing a
fun.
little spider popper. Yeah.
So, when was it that you transitioned from just being a diehard fisherman to a diehard fishing guy?
Yeah, I've done this before too. You know, our stories all disclose in a general way. We find ourselves around the college age. I started bartending and chasing women and chasing drinks, so my hobbies and activities definitely took a back burner. Later on I found those are like the pre-embryonic stages of my young alcoholism, but once I hit 30, I was homeless. I was living on the streets, and I knew that something was missing, and I had to take ownership for my choice, my path, and there's only one way you can make a change, and you have to decide to go full forward. And I had to replace my drinking with something that I was passionate about, and I made it was fly fishing. I checked myself into rehab, and when I wanted a cigarette or when I wanted to have a drink, I would tie a fly, and that was like my medication. That was my moment of shutting out the rest of the world. But
Yeah, it's definitely a therapeutic thing for
and
myself
just
as well.
getting
It's
on the
not-
river, it's like you don't even have to bring a rod. Just go stand in a river.
I think
Watch.
for the most part, human beings in general just need something to do.
Yes, I
And-
agree.
and if
Whether you
you're
crochet or whether you golf or whether you garden or whether you skydive or whatever,
Right. Do something and try to do something constructive, or at least not destructive.
Find something you're passionate about and
Yep.
make it your passion.
Otherwise, it's too easy for your passion to become
Yep.
things like alcohol or
Yep.
worse.
Yep. Yep. Thank God I never went down that rabbit hole. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely did the whole college chasing girls. Didn't fish that much, didn't hunt that much. I mean, I still did here and there, but it wasn't like I used to when I was younger, and that's
Yeah.
all I wanted to do. And I was kind of fortunate and saw where that could lead, and kind of just focus back on what I really enjoy. Because let's face it, going to the bar and getting drunk is kind of fun at the time. Not even that much fun
Yeah.
anymore, though. And then after that, it's not fun the next day.
it's a different challenge.
Yeah.
I get so much more out of life every day. So much more. This gives me back tenfold what I put into it, and that's why my wife gets upset. I would do this for free if I could do it for free. It's just so much enjoyment and relaxation and teaching people and showing people and turning over rocks and looking at bugs and teaching them about the life cycle of a caddisfly or a mayfly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I've heard some people. I think there's two types of fishing guides. There's ones that do it because they actually really enjoy it and they enjoy the teaching aspect, and then there's the ones that just like to fish and thought it would be fun to be with other people fishing, and they've missed that aspect of it, and then they stop doing it because
Yep.
it's not fun if you don't enjoy the teaching part
No,
too.
and that's I in the restaurant industry, that was my background. as serving, you see a lot of people who are bitter about what they do in their life, and you've got to make a decision. If you really don't like it, then get out, because you're making everybody else around you miserable. And
Yeah.
take those opportunities as learning experiences. I hear some guides that say they won't take out new people because new people don't deserve to catch fish during the hex hatch because other people have worked hard for it. I'm like, you know what? You're missing out on an opportunity to teach those people the right way of doing it. Same
Yeah.
thing with mousing, you know? How are you supposed to learn how to do this? Read
Right.
it on a book and
No.
watch YouTube videos?
Well, there aren't any YouTube videos of it.
Oh, there are.
I mean, there are, but not like you can watch. You could probably learn how to fly fish okay from YouTube videos in the
Sure.
daytime, but like
Sure.
at night, I feel like you need to go with somebody that knows what they're doing. One, just for the confidence of, am I doing this right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Ooh, that sounded serious.
yeah, it did.
That was not a log. And that's the other thing, too. The difference between a log and a real gurgle.
Well, we've been sitting here for long enough that if that log made that gurgle once, it would have done it again.
True.
And it hasn't. That was the first time. So anyways, you, at some point down the road, got married, became a guide.
Yeah. Well, I went in, I had a physical when I turned 40. Had chest pains from after ice fishing, walking across the lake, and I'm a non-smoker, non-drinker, semi-vegetarian by default because my wife is. I'd run the turkey trot every year. I'm an active guy, and I go in for the stress test, and I black out at like 6 miles an hour on an 18-degree incline. And the doctor comes in, he's like, we're going to go in and check you out. And my wife worked at the hospital at the time. They called her up. I thought, can this wait till after the weekend? Because it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm busy at work. Like, no, we're going in now. They found 90% blockage in my LAD, which is the widowmaker. They put in a stent. I was out the next day in time for my daughter's soccer practice. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
You're out
Yeah,
you went
boom.
to the soccer practice?
The next day, yeah, they'd go in through your femoral artery, and
Yeah, I just didn't
watched
realize
the entire
it was
thing on the big screen. It just felt like I was there, but I wasn't there. I qualified for a clinical because of my shape and my young age, so they gave me the placebo, but I actually got the real drug. My wife said, if there's something that you want to do with your life, this is a good time to do it. And I'd already been guiding, like pseudo off the charts, taking people out from the chamber, Women's Resource Center, Crooked Tree Arts. I would donate trips because I was president for the TU chapter. And I also did the salmon in the classroom at Sheridan Elementary School, and I worked closely with the DNR on that. And Heather from the DNR kind of said, you should probably get your guide license. You're doing more than just 1 or 2 trips a year. So I pursued that and became legit, I suppose.
What all does it take to get a guide license? I know there's different types of guides.
I'm inland pilot. So it means I can float on the rivers and inland lakes. Once I go on to Lake Charlevoix or a bigger lake that connects to the outside, that's not permitted. Neither is the PM. PM is a restricted access guide permit only.
Is that because of it's fast, dangerous river, or is it?
It can be. It's more about they want to regulate the amount of boat traffic on a day.
Okay.
Even if you were to float it in a canoe or a kayak between Memorial Day and Labor Day, you have to request for a day pass. So it is kind of like
That one and the Pine, right?
And the Pine. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it might not be too far in the future where the Asable and the Manistee might be on those same kind of restrictions. I think there might need to be a limited amount of boats. There's some nights when you go down the Asable and there's 30 trucks parked at the takeout, and
yeah,
it's a little bit crazy, but it's fun.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because there is, kayaks are cheap. Everybody can buy one. I mean, I like to go kayaking for fun with my friends, and
now there's a lot more fishing kayaks.
Yep.
And the conservation officers were at the takeout this summer and last summer, and they're issuing tickets to a lot of kayaks that had electric motors on their boats, and they didn't have MC numbers on them.
Yeah.
So you have to, once you put alternate power on your boat, you need to have a license number on it. So
That
or PFDs.
Yep.
No licenses. There's a lot of people that come up out of the woodwork just to catch big fish.
And a lot of people might honestly not even know
They
that.
don't, right.
So, I can't remember, how long did you say you've been guiding now?
10 years.
10 years. You do mostly in the northern
I try
lower
to stay
peninsula?
above the 45th parallel, the Jordan, the Pigeon State Forest, a little bit of the Boyne, Asable, Manistee, the Maple. The Maple and the Pigeon are all wadeable waters, but it's not too often you get people that actually want to pursue looking for brook trout. It's not a big fish game, and it's not for your average retiree who's picking up fly fishing to want to go jump a whole bunch of logs on
Right.
the Upper Jordan beaver dam hopping, because there's a lot of muck and there's a lot of spots in there that will
Yep.
that will take you away. So it's definitely more of an active.
Yeah, most of the places I brook trout fish, after the day's over, I ask myself why I even do it. And then I get out, and a few days later, I want to do it again.
Exactly. Exactly.
But you do pretty much any kind of trout fishing. Do you do like steelhead or salmon at all?
Salmon's not a special. I don't really do much salmon because our rivers in the north, I'm way above the dams on the Asable and the Manistee, so we're not seeing any anadromous runs. The sturgeon will see some salmon, but they've got a long way to go before they get there. There will be some steelhead. That's a much better fishery on the sturgeon and the pigeon, and the Jordan. But the Jordan's such a short river. It's only 27 miles total length compared to the PM or the PM 100 some miles, the Manistee 232 miles. Not to the dam, but it's a much shorter amount of time for a salmon to get to where it needs to go.
Right.
And usually the season closes end of September, so those fish are already up into where they need to go. And the Boyne is a short fishery. It's only 6.5 miles, and you're dealing with a lot of people that are in the river that are using spider wire, and they're ganking fish to get fish out and get their eggs. So it's not really the most pristine, most beautiful, most relaxing, enjoyable aspect of the sport.
Yeah.
So I would much rather be here in the Manistee chasing browns, or the best day of the year we always joke about is opening day of deer season, because nobody else is on the river.
Yeah.
They're in the woods shooting Bambi.
That's where I'll be.
And it's a good day to be on the river.
Yeah.
Browns and brookies both stage up in the early fall for pre-spawn, and that can be some very fun, exciting fishing. You don't have to use a huge streamer. You can use a little 1-inch marabou coachman and get some gorgeous brookies in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah, September is my favorite time to really chase any trout, actually.
Yep. And the colors are changing. That's the most scenic time of the year to be on any river.
Mm-hmm. I wish I could do a little more fishing sometimes in deer season, but I also primarily eat venison. But with your wife being a vegetarian, it probably
well, now she's
makes
keto, so we can eat we can eat meat.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yep. Venison chili. Football games. There's nothing better than fall and football and venison chili.
So, sorry, I had a question. I can't remember what it was. I keep umming about it. But
Going back to how long we've been doing this, why we do it.
Oh, steelhead.
Steelhead.
Salmon,
I love steelhead
salmon
fishing.
you don't really do, but
I love steelhead fishing as a personal endeavor, but like this past spring, April 14th, we got dumped on with over 2 feet of snow, and I had a client coming up from Grand Rapids, and I told him, don't even bother coming up. Steelhead can be a hit or miss thing, and you've got to be on the river. And if you're driving up, it's like you're either there or you're not there. And
that is the truth.
Definitely not an every time you go out kind of thing. But if you're on the Muskegon and you're jet boating around up and down, you know the pods, you know the holes, you know where they're setting up. Steelhead can be very predictable fish. That's why we like them. But when they're in a system like the Jordan they don't take very long to get up to where they need to go either. And so again, the same situation is you have to get them in the lower section of the river, because once they get above Graves Crossing, they're into no fishing until the end of April.
Right.
So
just more so that the rivers aren't really conducive to that type of fishing for guiding.
yeah,
Gotcha.
you can still do it, but it's tough when the Jordan doesn't have any gear restrictions as far as bait. So if you went down, there's been numerous times when another guide goes down the river and he's floating spawn bags underneath a bobber with,
Center
pin. Yes, thank you. And you're most likely not going to have a whole lot of success after he goes through that same run a couple dozen times with an artificial fly. But it can be done. It's just definitely more patience is required.
Yeah.
Steelhead are definitely a fish of numerous casts.
Sometimes far too many.
Yeah, but sometimes you go out there and you just put on a little black stonefly and a little nuke egg and boom, it's on.
Yeah, my steelhead fishing is always pretty hit or miss. It's either like a good day or I don't catch any.
Yeah. We don't know so much about fish and their behaviors and what barometer does, what a cold front does. We like to fish when there's a change. We like to fish when there's a rise in pressure. The fish seem to be doing something. They're moving. The Rogue down by you guys, because I grew up in Grand Rapids in the 80s, the Rogue had some phenomenal steelhead runs. It was like epic. You could just go out there and you knew where the pump hole was and you would catch 2 or 3 fish and it was awesome. You'd hook into 10, lose a few, but it was always fun.
Obviously I didn't fish back then. It still gets a good push of fish now, but
the river's changed a lot. It's definitely improved in different areas.
Like the quality of the river? Or?
Yeah, the concentration and efforts from Trout Unlimited. They did the Adopt a Stream. It's a national program, and a lot of different nonprofits have been involved with improving the quality. And it's just changed a lot because Rockford's not the little town it used to be.
No. Well, the whole area's
exploded, yeah.
I live there now, so I've never saw it before, but from, I talked to people that did live there, and they're like, yeah, I used to ride my dirt bike down that road. It's a dirt road, and now it's, there's $300,000, $400,000 houses lining the whole thing.
Yep.
That's why I moved
further
a little bit outside of it. So pretty soon here we're going to get to doing some mousing.
Yep.
Micing.
Mousing.
Is
it really micing or is it frogging? We've had this debate before too.
Yeah.
If we were in Alaska or in Kamchatka and you open up a belly of a rainbow and there were 10 or 15 voles in the belly of a big fat 25-inch rainbow, I would say it's mousing.
Well, or voling.
Right, or voling. But when you walk along the banks of any given northern Michigan river and you're kicking up 25 leopard frogs or bullfrogs, there's definitely the contention to believe that it might be more frogging. Or is it just a big piece of meat that's swimming across the top of the river and the brown trout, being the predaceous creature that it is, has to check it out?
Right, because they are predators. And that's one thing that when I first started trout fishing, what I knew about trout fishing when I started was articles I'd read in Field and Stream about dry fly fishing, and everything just had to be perfect and silent, and which is true in some cases, but well, even tonight, that dry fly, that nice fish that I caught, it slammed it. It didn't come up and sip it off of the surface. It slammed it. And they're looking for a big meal, not a tiny little bug. But yeah, I think I don't know if they care what it is. I think they just think that thing is moving, it's alive, therefore I can probably eat it.
Yep.
So I guess explain to somebody that, in a way that somebody that has never been before, take us through, like, what do you need to go mousing?
Ultimately, some guys are going to use an 8-weight rod. I think that can be a little bit overkill. As long as you have a 6 or a 7-weight rod that has enough, it has to be a stiff enough action to be able to handle pulling out a decent sized fish, 20 plus inches out of heavy cover. What we learned when we did Arkansas, a lot of Michigan guides go down to Arkansas and they fish the White River. They go mousing, but they also do a lot of, they're throwing deceivers. They're throwing Great Lakes double deceivers. Mike Schmidt ties a phenomenal pattern, and we threw a lot of those. And those are basically just imitations of large rainbow trout that the Browns are going to feed on because it's their primary food source. But the fish down there are looking for something that's pulsing or pushing a wake. They're looking for something that's near the surface and it's causing movement. We also didn't use anything less than 15-pound fluoro because you don't know if you're going to hook into a 30-inch fish, and you need to have some horsepower behind it to pull it out of the wood or from the bottom. Here in Michigan, we've got a lot more wood and we've got a lot of tighter structures, so I like using an 8.5-foot rod. TFO's Axiom 2 or the BVK, you really can't beat the BVK in any arena of any fly fishing, whether it's delicate dries or streamer fishing. The BVK has enough action, but stiff enough that you can pull something out of the wood. The TICRX, which is no longer in production, is another good rod for that. But the new Axiom 2 is a faster action rod, and you can definitely pick up. The biggest component is you've got to be able to pick up a big, wet, heavy fly off the water and deliver it with some accuracy. And if you don't have a strong enough rod for that, you're going to get a lot of flim-flam in your rod on your back cast. That's a technical term, but the rod does not return to loading. And when you bring it forward, that fly has a pretty good chance of either getting you in the back of the head or going into a tree. So you need to have something that is strong enough, stiff enough, and has proper action to get a heavy fly with a streamer like the amplitude line from Scientific Anglers, or I've got the frequency and the glow line set up. You can see it glowing behind us.
Yep.
If you hit that with a little bit of UV light, it glows a soft light for at least an hour or two, and you can hit it up again, or you can just hit a small section of it so you don't light up the whole river. People going out for the first time see that glow line and they're like, whoa, that's trippy. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But
it does look cool.
It helps if you have some kind, especially for the beginning fly angler that goes mousing for the first time, if they can get any advantage of seeing where their fly might be, just watching that line drift down the river gives them a better idea of where that fly is going.
Better, good, or whatever.
Yep, exactly. So a strong enough rod. You don't need to go so heavy that you're going to be tired at the end of the day, but it's nice. You're in northern Michigan. You're going to make some roll casts. You're going to make a lot of roll casts. Keep it short. There's no reason you need to be trying to make a 200-yard lefty cray cast in the middle of the dark. Keep it 25, 20 yards out. That's all you need. You don't need to go that far. The fish have moved out of that hidden wood structure and they're moved into shallower sand lot areas, we call them, the playground. They moved into areas where they can actively feed on crustaceans, other fish, and surface animals. You never see a killer whale attack a seal out in the middle of the open ocean. They're only going to take them out near the island or near the shore because the seal can outmaneuver a killer whale out in open water. Same thing with smaller fish and large predaceous fish. A big fish can't get a smaller fish out in deep water. They can get them if it's shallow.
Gotcha. How shallow of water are you talking?
Anywhere from hip deep to knee deep. I've seen big fish in less than knee deep water. I've seen them in like 12 inches of water hunting.
Okay.
It's look for the wake, listen for the wake, listen for where a fish might be. It's not always where It's the exact opposite of where you would be casting during the day. If you have the opportunity to be wading, cast upstream and slowly strip down, you have a better chance of hooking up because you're bringing the fly into the fish instead of pulling it out of his mouth. When you're drifting or you're in a boat, you want to quarter downstream and let that fly gently swing across the river. Adding a little bit of motion to the rod tip gives that fly a lifelike movement. Give it a pause every once in a while. If there's something looking at it, it's going to hit it as soon as you start picking it up and moving it again. The hardest thing to do is to resist the temptation of setting the hook, especially after a couple of Red Bulls and a couple cups of coffee. You just you're so heightened and ready to go, you got to let it. Wait till you feel the resistance before you set the hook.
That's the hard part.
It is the hard part. Sometimes a big fish will come up and slash at said mouse, vole, lemming, whatever, to immobilize it, and then they're thought to drop back a foot or two and wait for that bait to float down to them. They'll come up and hit it a second time. It's hard to not swing on the first smack surface attack.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could compare it to is when you're topwater fishing for bass and you see them come up and hit it, and you just pull it right out of their mouth.
Right out of their mouth.
Except with this, you can't see it. You're just hearing it. But I haven't caught one mousing yet. I went with you the first time and I think had one come out and slash at it.
Yep.
Last night when I went, I had 2 solid hits. The first one, the fish missed, never came back. The second one, I just pulled it right out of its mouth, and of course it didn't come back again.
Right.
But I would argue that the amount of time that you have to wait, I don't really know. It all happens so fast, I don't even know if it's like a whole second you have to wait, but it's a lot longer than waiting for the bass to take that lure.
Yeah, at least count to God Save the Queen, or give it a 1/1000. It's hard to do, but...
Do you want to wait until you feel it?
Yeah.
And then how do you...
Well, sometimes you're just going to get an accidental hookup, especially if you have a stinger hook or a secondary hook. A lot of mice patterns now are tied on shanks with rabbit strips and foam on the top half, and then just rabbit strip on the bottom half where the hook is, so that sways underneath the water. Sometimes that improves your hookup chance. It all depends on how the fish hits it, from where the fish is coming from, and how your fly is swinging. Sometimes you're actually pulling it out of his mouth to the wrong side when the fish slashes. That's why you can go down the river some nights and have 12 hits and only boat 1 fish, or we moved 10 fish tonight and only caught 1.
Yeah.
You're moving a lot of fish. Sometimes you don't even know if that was a 10-inch fish or a 20-inch fish.
Right.
You moved a fish.
Do you catch many fish in the 10-inch range mousing, or are they...
Sometimes, little guys have a bigger eyeball than they have stomach, and you'll get a 12 or a 14-inch fish that will hit a 4-inch mouse. So it's not uncommon. It happens. That's in their nature. They see something moving. It's like twitching that string in front of the couch, and the cat comes out and hits it. That's what you're doing on the river. You're twitching a yarn ball across the living room, and the cat comes out from underneath the couch.
That's a good analogy.
It's just tapping into the instinct.
And that's all there is to it. It's that easy, right? And then you just catch
that's
fish.
What we'd like to believe. It's just so much fun, because some nights it's lights out, and you get, we've counted 30 moves on a night, and you boat 7 or 8 fish.
Which is a great day of trout fishing.
That would be great. Some days you go out and you only move 1 fish and you catch 1 fish. That's fishing, and the moon plays a huge part of it. We're not going to see the moon rise tonight, but I don't like being out on a full moon. I've seen less fish activity during a full moon than any other time. Some guys like it.
You can see better, that's for sure.
You can see better. I like having a quarter or just a little bit of light, but not a whole lot.
When we were fishing last night, the moon didn't come out until
2:30.
Yeah, and it really wasn't up in the sky and bright until like 3.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd caught 1 fish and moved a couple before it came up, and caught 1 fish and moved a couple after it came up. So, and that's about all I have experience-wise with it. So
this is a
it's tough
perfect
to say.
night. This is, you know, a little bit of cloud cover. We had a 91-degree day today. You want those warm, hot, summer muggy nights. It just feels, this is what mousing. And you're not very effective during the day because it's 90 degrees.
Right.
The fish aren't out in the middle of the river when it's so warm and sunny. So you might as well save your energy and go out at 10 o'clock or midnight and fish for a few hours, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just fun to be out there at night. And
it's a definite test of what you know, shadows move. You see eyes, you see things in the woods that weren't there a minute ago. It's really cool that we realize how small we are in this great cosmos. You know, you get out here and you look at the stars in the sky and you're like, wow, there's so much more out here. A lot of people comment on that too. They're like, I've never seen so many stars. I'm like, when's the last time you've been on a river at midnight and looked up?
Yeah.
You know, in northern Michigan, you don't have a whole lot of ambient light coming anywhere, and it's so amazing.
Yeah, it is just crazy when you get up here, and when you're in Grand Rapids, you can see some stars, and then when you get up here, there's like 100 stars for every one of those stars you can see.
Yeah, literally.
It's awesome.
Tonight we got a little bit of cloud cover, so it's
Yeah.
nice. Temperature's dropping.
And it is, I mean,
Water temperature was what, 63, 64 earlier?
yeah, I think you had it at 63.
Yep.
Which is way better than last week.
Yep.
How much rain did you guys get up here?
We got dumped on for a little bit because we just sanded and stained our deck, so it was like perfect timing. You know, no rain all summer, and we decided to paint the deck, stain the deck. But
It seriously didn't rain for
3 weeks,
Yeah.
4 weeks. It was a dry summer,
yeah.
and our high water from the late snowfall definitely was used up in the middle of summer.
Yep.
What else are you thinking?
Well, maybe we can explain why there was a little chuckle about the rod that is no longer in production that I so politely just smashed into about 40 pieces on you earlier tonight.
At least a couple pieces. The TI CRX is no longer made as a titanium chromium plated. It was a really nice streamer rod that that TFO no longer makes. That was in the 7-weight.
I'm glad I at least got to use one.
I do have the Mini Mag. The Mini Mag is a under 8-foot production rod that is no longer made as well by TFO.
Well, don't let me touch it.
No, but that was made for bass fishing, for bass tournaments, because if it's under 8 foot, you can use it, and it's a great streamer. It was the perfect daytime streamer / nighttime meat stick. You could definitely pull stuff big bass out of the weeds, or big trout out of the woodwork. So that's my other favorite rod, and it's only an 8-footer. It's a super stiff rod. You've got to overline it. You can't, you know, it's rated.
What does overlining mean?
Well, it's rated for a 6 to 8 weight line. I think you definitely want to go on the 8 side of the 6 to 8, and that's a grain weight for the line. Otherwise, you don't get enough flex on the rod. Each rod is designed to withstand a certain amount of flex, and the weight of a 10-foot section of that line is what they weight the grain rate a line. This has been changed a lot since the 60s because there used to be a set parameter, just like they're trying to re-regulate it all across the board, because one line production company is not the same weight as, you know, the same 8-weight line is not the same
different actual
grain
weights.
weight. Yes.
Gotcha.
So they're trying to relook at how they market that whole process. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but in a nutshell.
But the good thing about the rod is they do have good warranties, correct?
Yes. I'm not concerned at all. It was funny how you did it. You wrapped it up on the streamer, snagged something in the bottom, and the tip of the rod got wrapped around the line, and then the line wrapped around the butt, and
all pulled tight.
It was doubled over, and bing. Yeah.
So
whatever.
I wouldn't ever. recommend that someone throw a rod in the water, but I think that's what I should have done in this scenario. What had happened was, you see, what had
2020.
happened was, yeah, it wrapped around the center portion of the rod. I started trying to pull that knot out. At the same time, the loop from it going around the center of the rod went around the reel. Streamer snagged up on something on the bottom.
Woodwork, sure.
And then when it started pulling tight, it basically pulled where it was wrapped around that eye and just smashed it together. And yeah, it had no hope.
Nope. And then the fly was gone.
Yeah, and we even lost the fly.
But that's okay. We don't cry about spilt milk, and it happens.
I have a hard time.
I understand.
When I spill the milk at my house, I cry about
Not
it.
the first time. But we are...
I think we are probably about ready to get
10:30.
after some fish.
Yep. Charge up some of this line right here again.
Maybe we can do
Oh, that's bright.
a quick little wrap-up session and explain how we did. Hopefully have some good stories about talking about some good fish we caught, or at least a fish. That'd be awesome.
It's always good to talk about catching some.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's get after it. Well, we're back.
It's
We
2:43. 2:43 a.m.
2:43. That makes two very late nights on the river.
79 degrees.
So, it was a success. I
would say
officially
yes.
landed my first brown at night.
On the mouse.
On the mouse. On a fly rod.
No short strike.
Also caught my biggest fish on a dry fly. Caught several fish on a dry fly.
Yep. Oh.
We didn't get any on a streamer, did we?
Nope. No streamer, guys.
But, yeah, we got a little bit of everything in. I lost a much bigger fish than the one that I did land.
But every fish that you caught came when you weren't paying attention.
I also hooked, in my book, I hooked every single fish that hit, right?
At least temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't land them all, but
No.
a very good percentage on unhooking fish. That big one took me, I think it was the same fish.
It could have been, yeah.
Could have been a different fish, but I think it was the same fish. But, yeah, that was a ton of fun. I would highly recommend if somebody has never tried mousing that they get out and give it a shot. And
it's fun. There's a lot of people that say they would never imagine being able to do it and go out in the dark and cast, but you don't have to be totally blind about it. The moon just came up, so we didn't have any moonlight, but we were just using our red lamps, and you can see what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not in the wood and the structure. You've got to believe that the fish are in front of all that stuff. They're out on the prowl. They're hunting. They're looking for food. So you got to hit different spots, both sides of the river, all the time.
Yeah, I would definitely say I was in the group of, I don't really know if I can go out there and stand in the river in the dark and catch fish on a fly rod. I have a hard enough time doing it in the daylight, but I'm not going to say it's easy to catch fish, but I'd almost argue that it's not easier, but it's not hard. You know, it's what you're doing isn't like super technical, and you don't have to be perfect about it.
In the dark, it's more effective using a fly rod.
Yeah.
Than conventional tackle for sure.
I would agree with that. You have much more controlled casts. You know how far it's going. So if you're trying to fish at night with spinning tackle and you're casting a spinner, you have no idea where that thing's going.
And you're losing a lot of gear.
Yep. We didn't lose one mice. Actually, we came back with extras.
Yeah, we found a few extra tree ornaments hanging around.
Yeah, it was like Christmas out there.
Add to the collection.
All right, well, you've got an hour drive home.
Yep.
I've got a 20-minute drive home.
We have no sleep. It's time to rest.
No sleep and no cell phone.
Dude, it was awesome. Yeah, right.
All right, well, we'll have to do it again soon, Brian.
You bet.
Thanks for taking me fishing.
You bet.
Oh, babe. That's the time.